So those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Maria. I'm the digital coordinator at the College of Psychic Studies. And I'm really pleased to welcome our speaker today, Caroline Mitchell. So Caroline is the UK's leading dragon author and channeler, and she has been working with the dragon since 2005. She is the author of the best-selling oracle cards, the Dragon Path Oracle, and the book How to Live with Dragons, both of which are published by Watkins. And she's joining us for today's talk on dragon energy, an evening with the original dragon lady. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. Please feel free to put questions in the chat, as I mentioned. And if there's anything else you want to say to me, drop me a message. And yeah, welcome, Caroline.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Maria. Welcome to Dragon HQ and Dragon Studio. So I see a couple of familiar faces, so thank you for joining me. It's nice to see you here. I was just talking to Maria before we came on about, what do I talk about? How much of me do you want to know? So I thought maybe we'd start at the beginning and where my journey began, which was my first introduction to dragons was into about 2002 through the colour mirror system. And I was on a workshop, on a colour practitioner workshop. And it was like, we all had to choose a bottle to work with for the couple of days that we were there. And I'd already heard about dragons and I was going, not sure about this dragon energy. It's all a bit far-fetched for me. And so I parked it initially. And one of the bottles, we had to go and choose a bottle to work with. And these bottles are unlabeled. If you know colour mirrors, you know they're not labelled. They're literally just colours. And we were working with spritzers this particular day. And I trundled into the next room and was all looking at the bottles, and they're all very pretty. Anyway, I came back out, and the lady that was running the workshop laughed. She said, "Well, that's Black Dragon, Caroline." It's like, oh, for goodness sake. And that was, so having worked with Black Dragon that day from the colour mirror system, that's where it started, but very gently, I've got to say. And I was yes, no with it. Fast forward to 2004, 2005, I was introduced to 48 dragons all in one go through my Reiki 1 attunement. I've got to say that was pretty big. That blew my socks off for a few days. And a part of that initial download was my life's work, which was to create a deck, create a book, run workshops and some other things. Well, the workshops are relatively easy because I was already teaching at that point. So I just needed the information for the dragons that I needed to share. So I ran my very first dragon workshop in August 2007. And I've never ever had a workshop sell out in 24 hours. And that one did. And I've been talking to people about dragons and things, and I'll get, the raised eyebrow and what is this energy all about and so on. And so people were intrigued because in the early to mid 2000s, there was absolutely nobody that I could find working with dragon. There were one or two that were very much on the pagan path, had a sort of a connection to dragon, but not in the same way that I did. And I'm sure many of you that are here this evening probably have the same thing. It's dragons have shown up, or you've had this awareness of dragons, don't know where to go with it, don't know what to do with it. Are you going around the bend? Because that was a regular question I asked myself. And actually, was it even wise to bring these creatures in? Our myths and fables and fairy tales are very much about dragons are these fire-breathing, maiden-stealing, gold-hoarding beasts. And it's like, why am I doing this? And I really did wonder if was it sensible anyway. But what I found was, and again, you guys may have had the same kind of sort of feeling, that actually I couldn't stop. I had to keep going with it. And it was like following a trail of breadcrumbs. It was literally steps being laid out in front of me. And so they've been my teachers for the last 20 years, really. And they've, the book's based around it, the cards are based around it. And they have taught me so much. And what came back to me sort of recently in the last couple of years, really, is something that my late mentor told me. I met my mentor when I was 17. And he passed away when I was in my early 30s, 30, 31, something like that. And he said to me, the greatest teachers you will ever have will be your spirit guides. And I've got to say, that has never been truer than with the dragons, if you know how to connect with them and you have that connection. And there becomes the sticky wicket, because so often I get so many questions from people. I can't see my dragon. I can't hear my dragon. My dragon's disappeared. What have I done to upset it? And there's a few possibilities there. And these are the things that I've come to understand. Is dragons don't have any kind of formal language as we understand it. Many people talk about dragons having language like light language, so sort of dragon language is very similar to light language. I've never heard it, but it's something that, you know, people talk about. To me, they don't have a formal language. They use very much telepathy, body language, that type of thing. They have that sort of connection with each other that, you know, surpasses verbalization. They are learning, and they've learned how to communicate with us through whatever our mother native tongue is. They will use that language. And if you do hear your dragon, because it's quite common that we don't hear them audibly, is that you'll notice they talk in very short and clipped sentences. They don't do convoluted. Caroline does convoluted. The dragons don't. They keep it really succinct and in. They don't waste words. You see, I waffle. The dragons really don't waffle. And I think they've been trying to teach me for 20 odd years to be succinct. I'm getting better. But the dragons are very succinct, and they are very short and very clipped sentences. So they can come across as being almost rude, I suppose, and short. And it's because they don't faff about. They don't have they don't see the need of why we pander and ponce around the edges, really. They're just very direct. The other thing is people that can't see their dragons. That's quite often because they're just so darn huge. They're sort of right here in front of you. It's like, step back a bit. I need to see you. What's really interesting, and this is something else that I've discovered over the years, is the dragons work frequently with claircognizance. So unless you're very clairvoyant or very clairaudient, it's not uncommon not to see or hear your dragon. If they really want your attention, they will shout. Now, one shouted at me recently. What was that about? I can't remember. But they really wanted my attention, and I got bellowed at. I can't remember what it was for now, but I don't hear them as the norm. They work much more for me, because I'm claircognizant rather than clairvoyant or clairaudient. They work on that claircognizant level, so that clear knowing level. What else was I going to say about that? You have your own team. So how many of you, I'm going to ask a direct question now, so just to put a spanner in the works on our format, how many of you know your dragon guides? Just stick a yes or yes, I know my dragon guide in the chat. Just to give me a, okay. There's a few of you. There's quite a few of you. Well done. So do you know which guide they are? Because we have 4 when we're working with dragon. So I've had people come to me and say, I've got 50 dragons. It's like, oh my word, I found 48 enough. So some of you do, some of you don't. Okay. So we have a set of 4 that makes up our core team. So we have our dragon guide, our dragon guardian, our dragon teacher, and the dragon healer. Now, you may have, most have 3, but you may have anything from 1 to 4, depending on what your work is on the planet, what work needs to do on you, because dragons are big on our own healing. And all the dragons have a level of healing with the work that they do with us. But ultimately, your team is made up of your teacher, who's your spiritual teacher, your guide, who he's to do with your physical reality and how you live your life, what's going on in your life. They'll know sort of jobs, getting you from A to B safely, house moves, relocating, all that kind of stuff. Your dragon guide is very much to do with your physical stuff, physical world. And your spiritual dragon is all very much to do with your spiritual reality and your spiritual path and wherever you're going. They can be one and the same dragon. So some people have those 2 combined. I've actually got 2 separate ones, but other people can have your teacher and guide as one dragon. And then we have our healer dragon. Now that brings me back to the very beginning once more. So when I met the 48 dragons at the end of my Reiki one day, at the very beginning of the day, there was this huge, and I mean huge, red dragon in the corner of the room. And I was with a girlfriend who was there for the day as well. And she said, "Can you see that red dragon in the corner?" I said, "I know he's, no, I can't see him, but I know he's there." I know, just ignored him. Just like, whatever, we've got a red dragon in the room. Okay. I had forgotten all about him, completely forgotten about him. And then people started saying to me, "You've got a red dragon with you. You've got a red dragon with you." I don't have a red dragon. No idea, not mine. It's got to be yours. I don't have a red dragon. And I was having coffee with a girlfriend, and I was talking to her about this because she said to me, "You've got a red dragon." I said, "I haven't." I so haven't. And then it dawned on me that the red dragon is actually a grandmaster. So a grandmaster, if you haven't got my decks, you won't be familiar with them. But a grandmaster is a dragon that can be human form or dragon form, so the shapeshifters. I called them shapeshifters for a long time until they told me, no uncertain terms, very loudly, that we are the grandmasters. So they can show up as angelic human form or dragon form. They can shapeshift between one or the other. So examples is Illuminaire from my deck. So he's Uriel, the archangel. That was slightly strange. I didn't think dragons and angels, they were separate. But anyway, he wants to be in the deck, and he can be dragon, he can be angelic. Merlin, got Merlin the magician, you've got Merlin the dragon. Who else is there in the deck? It's a grandmaster. My brain's Platinum. So Platinum is Saint Germain, the violet flame, and then he's Platinum the dragon. So Yusui shows up as a red dragon, and the amount of times I've heard from people subsequently, they're doing their Reiki training, this red dragon shows up. What's the red dragon all about? And it's Dr. Yusui. Maybe keeping an eye on what's going on, being actively present during the training or the healing. And it's interesting that the amount of people that actually have their first encounter with dragon is through Reiki. And it's odd. It's a huge number of people that say, I was doing a healing. I was doing my training, I was having a treatment, and in comes a red dragon. And it's got to be Dr. Usui. That is my whole being tells me it's Dr. Usui. So that's quite an interesting sort of anecdotal point. So we all have a healer dragon. Now it depends on your path to what dragon you'll have, whether your healer dragon is supporting your own healing, or whether he's supporting or she's supporting you as a therapist. So they will work in either way. So if you're trained in something like Dragon Reiki or dragon guided healing, you will certainly have a dragon or more than one healing dragon with you if you're specifically trained in those areas. But as a healer, just so bog standard, I don't mean that detrimentally, but as a normal Reiki healer, don't be at all surprised if dragons start to come through and you start to get somebody like Usui show up. So that's sort of the basis of dragons. I'm going to ask another question now. So those of you that see your dragon colors, see your dragons, and you see their colors, do you see them as one color, two, or more? So again, just stick it in the chat box. So it's one. So I just quickly look at these. So bear with me, please, Maria and guys. Tony says one. So Alan says some was right, 1, 2, gold. Okay, interesting. Interesting. You've all got different colors. So some of you are working with the golden helix, right? Okay, right. Okay, that's interesting. Black. How interesting. So ultimately, this is again just keeping it generalized. Our day-to-day dragons will be dual colored. Now this is beginning to change, but when they first came in, they would come in on 2 or 3 colors. I won't go into all this because I'm going into more detail of this in the workshop. But it's quite common for people to see a couple of different colors with their dragons. So one along from their nose, along their back, the tip of their tail, and one underneath, from under their chin and under their tummy. And solid colors again are quite significant, especially the more muted tones. And I see some of you are already working with the golden helix ray dragons, and they are quite an incredible energy to work with. So although they are to do with earth healing and grid work, you guys may already know this if you're working with the golden dragons, but they're also to do with abundance and flow, not simply financial abundance, but abundance of life. And having that attitude of gratitude, because that's what the golden ray bringing that attitude of gratitude, and finding that joy, because the dragons do think we get a bit serious sometimes, and maybe it's just being human doings. We take ourselves a bit too seriously. So the golden rays, although they have a serious side and they have some big work to do, they're also about having that abundance and that attitude of gratitude and finding that joy within us. Because when we celebrate from a point of joy and love what we do, we step into flow, and the world around us just vibrates differently. Now that's something else to actually mention. Again, you may well have noticed it. If you're working with, you guys are probably really all working with dragons, so you may have noticed this. Have you noticed the energy change? It was one of the first things I noticed when I started working with dragon, is that they're not vibrational. their frequency. And that's the big difference from working with dragon. Whether you know, if you're used to working with angelic realms and your spirit guides, your power animals, and that type of thing, they're very much vibrational. The dragons are frequency, and that's why they're a game changer for us and working with us on the planet. Because we're going through through change, we're going through times of change. There's so much happening, you know, from everything from you know, Schumann resonance to solar flares to the ascension process. I don't go with the ascension process as that sort of standard. It's more about spiritual evolution. And that's the dragon's term for it. And they also don't see us as light workers, but as spiritual warriors of earth. Because one of the things that their role as a collective, and this is all the clans, not one specific clan, is that if we want our world to grow and sustain and still be here in 200 years time plus, we need to be the change that is happening for the world to survive and thrive, and for us as a species to thrive. So they're also about accountability and taking responsibility. And I like that. It's like, oh, wow, that's a big job. You know, that's like, oh, that's a yoke around your neck. But each one of us, every single one of us, you guys here, everybody on the planet has a responsibility to the planet and to ourselves and the generations that are still to come through. Because we need to be the change. We need to be active in whatever way is appropriate for you. Because if we don't take responsibility, if we don't bang our drums and stamp our feet, peacefully or otherwise, ideally peacefully, nothing's going to happen. Nothing will change. And so every single one of us, and that includes you guys that are here, we all have a part to play in that. We all have a role to play. Whether it be just, you know, being more careful with what we buy in the way of plastic, not being so wasteful. I'm preaching to the choir, I dare say, but it's still a very valid point. So that's sort of a very potted version of the dragons, and a quick whistle-stop tour of them. There are many other roles. There's the dragons of the land, the earth dragons. There's the dragons of light, which come under the underneath them is that the golden helix ray dragons, and those other dragons that under the ray dragons, emerald rays, platinum ray, and others. And then there's Magdalene and her dragons, the sapphire rays. So the dragons are vast, and they are not a one size fits all. And it's what I've come to understand, everybody's journey with the dragon is totally unique and personal to you. Because being a dragon practitioner, walking with dragons, is a lonely path. And it is a lone path. So what is amazing is that we had the Dragon Thunder Summit a couple of weeks ago, which brought over 1,000 people from across the world together that are all dragon related. Having you guys here tonight through the College of Psychic Studies, the dragons are bringing us together because what they love is community and unity. But ultimately, we're all lone practitioners, because your path, mine and yours, is personal and completely unique to you. So there'll be some of you tonight that really will not agree with some of the things I've said, because it's not your experience. Your experience is something very different. And do you know what? That's absolutely fine, because that's how it's supposed to be. because our experiences with our dragons are completely personal. And there'll be others of you it'll completely resonate with. And that's fine too. And that's what I love about the dragons, that diversity of how we work with them. There is not this rule that you have to work with dragons in this way. The only rule I would say there should be is actually it's about respect. And that is that you respect your dragons and their energy like you would any other being on the planet. And that's what it comes down to. It's that mindful respect. And actually treat them as you'd wish to be treated. Another question that comes up actually quite often is, do I have to make offerings to my dragon? And I really scratch my head about that and go, why? Why would you need to make an offering to a dragon? Because 99.9% of the time, dragon has chosen you. You haven't gone looking for dragon most of the time. Majority of people I work with, dragons turned up. Reiki, healing, meditation, in the clouds, whatever. However, dragon has hit their radar, quite often in quite a big way. So why would you need to make an offering to them? Why would you think that you're not good enough? That they need some kind of offering to appease them? They're not gods that are full of wrath. They are beautiful beings that are now allowed to work with us again, because they were stopped for quite a long time. They were under the universal law, they were stopped from working with us, and they had to be invited back in. And that was a few years ago now. So over the last few years, since about the last five or six, the dragons have re-hit our collective consciousness. And there's more and more and more people are now finding dragons. So what started off as a little ripple of, you know, me talking to people and then other people around the world doing the same thing, this tiny little ripple that started out 20 odd years ago is now becoming a bit more of a wave, not a tidal wave, but a bit more of a wave. And we're hitting the collective consciousness, and more people are finding dragons appearing in their lives. And it really is quite a journey. So, half an hour I've waffled for. Do we want to do questions? And then I'll probably disappear down rabbit holes, but I'm happy to answer direct questions. Have you got anything there, Maria, that's really standing out at you?
There were a few interesting comments, a lot of other people chiming in about how dragons came to them after their experiences with Reiki. And someone has just said that they saw their first dragons after meditating on the dragon lines in Wiltshire.
Ooh. Yeah, and then was that Avebury or Stonehenge? Because they go through, there's dragon lines that go right through there. That's really interesting. I'd like to know where that was. There's always, then you've got the hills as well, so you've got all the white horses and things through there. So fantastic. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to do some questions. I'm sort of talked out at the minute for the time being, but I'm sure you guys will trigger something else to me if you've got any questions to ask.
While people are collecting their thoughts,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So the questions are coming in now. So if there's time for mine at the end, we'll come back to mine. So the question is, do you have experience with dragons working with the animal kingdom? I feel I work a lot with my dragons with animals.
How amazing. Absolutely. There's absolutely no reason why not. Now, there is one particular dragon from my deck, Aesculapius. I don't know if you want to see it. Can I just get him out? Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it. So
that's my deck, the Dragon Path Oracle, if you don't know it. But there's one particular dragon that's Aesculapius. I don't know where he is in here. Bear with me while I find him. Probably going to be the last card I come to, isn't he? Where's Aesculapius gone? I've lost him out the deck. There he is. So this guy, can you see him? Okay, so it's not particularly clear. Do I go further out or do I come back? Probably come back, better if I come back. Try to look at the light on him. No, so this guy is he's quite shamanic. Now he works with plants, herbs, essential oils, crystals, but he also works with vets, animal communicators, and animal healers. So there's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't work with Aesculapius or a dragon like Aesculapius in animal communication, because he works with that natural world. So it's very, yeah, I would absolutely say, absolutely. If you're working on that level, absolutely, somebody like Aesculapius is probably working with you. Oh, can I just answer that one from Jenny? I'm an incarnated dragon.
Yeah,
you know
there are
what?
quite a few above that though, just so you know.
Oh, sorry. I'll come back to that in a minute then. Sorry. I just have to catch it.
There's two that I'll kind of ask together.
Yeah.
Because they're both asking about crystals. So some person has said that they noticed you have dragon skulls behind you that are crystals, and they're asking what's the connection between dragons and crystals. And then someone else has mentioned that their journey with dragons started as a crystal healer. So is there anything you want to say about crystals and dragons?
Interesting. Okay, so certainly some people use the skulls for channeling. I tend to use my skulls. Now they're actually set up in a grid form at the minute. So I've got 4 big ones there. So mine are set up in this. I tend to use mine for gridding. So if I'm doing any intentional work, planetary work, I use those guys for clearing, balancing, healing, or setting something within the planet. So that's how I use them. Now I know other dragon people use them for channeling. They have a strong galactic connection that I don't have in the same way. And so they channel anything from light language to dragon language to healing and goodness knows what else through their dragon skulls. When I did my crystal practitioner course, I don't know, mid-2000s, I actually don't remember much of the crystal practitioner course, because I was getting huge downloads all day. This was in Avebury, and I was getting huge downloads all day, and I'd met somebody that also understood dragon. Not in the same way that I did, but they worked or had a dragon connection. I was absolutely blown away, and I was given the Dragons of Atlantis workshop when during at that time at Avebury, and that's connected through the crystals. So yes, dragons do work through crystals, and if you're a crystal healer and then you bring in dragon energy, I'd imagine that'd be incredibly pokey. I've not actually tried that, but I'd imagine that'd be incredibly pokey to do. So yes, you can use the crystals with dragons. There are obviously there's the dragon stone. Is it dragon bloodstone? I don't know where mine is. Mine's around somewhere. It's an Australian crystal that obviously has crystal connections, or a dragon connection, sorry. So yeah, I definitely think there's a definite connection between dragons and crystals.
Thank you. And someone else was asking about dragons and stone circles. So the question is, are stone circles guarded by dragons?
Very much so. Now there are 2 at Avebury. There's the Avebury matriarch, who again is in my deck, and then there is the guardian of Avebury, and that was one of the times that I heard dragon really clearly, and I actually got bawled out. I got bellowed at, because I discovered a dragon under Silbury Hill, because dragons get caught in the land. Often they're trapped. They've sort of been incarcerated into the lands, not all the time, but this particular dragon was. And as I drove past Silbury, I was thinking, oh, I need to come back and do some work and release him. As I tuned into his energy and went, oh, I'm not doing that. He's a very grumpy dragon. First grumpy dragon I'd ever come across. And this dragon wasn't actually grumpy. He was like seriously hacked off. And so it took months of work with me and another girl. And there's the Samhain, one particular Samhain. There was 50 of us at the bottom of Silbury Hill, sending this dragon some healing. And then we went from there up to West Kennet Long Barrow, and we were walking back down, and a couple of the girls said to me, "What's his name?" I said, "Oh, he's the Dragon of Silbury," completely off the cuff, you know, very dismissively. Don't be dismissive with Dragon. Oh, they really don't like it. He absolutely bellowed across the landscape at me, "I am the guardian of Avebury." And so what you have male and female. This is again my understanding. So you've got the Avebury matriarch, who's actually in the moon circle, in the moon quadrant at Avebury, and then the guardian of Avebury who got incarcerated under Silbury Hill. So once we actually released him, then the following spring equinox. And he's as happy as a sandboy now. He flies around. He's got this magnificent golden wonky cross on his tail, and he's absolutely loving life and enjoying having that freedom. So yes, they're in pairs. So they're the balance of the divine masculine, divine feminine. And yeah, you will always find frequently pairs of dragons at sacred sites.
Okay,
I hope that answers that question.
And that takes us to the question about you. Are you an incarnated dragon?
Do you know, I have absolutely no idea. So, you know, the dragon's been around from the day dot. And there's quite possibly there could well be those. There are many people I'm coming across that are saying they're feeling they are dragon reincarnate. I don't feel that I am. They've decided that I'm the mouthpiece for the dragon. They decided that actually I am the person that talks about dragon across the world. It's a job that I really try and keep ducking and diving out of, but they won't let me go. So no, I don't feel that I am an incarnated dragon, but I just feel that I am a dragon ambassador.
Okay, thank you. And I'll read this one out. So someone said, just as other beings have dragon aspects, I've come to understand that we all have a dragon aspect, which is becoming more active within us. Any thoughts on this?
Oh, a dragon aspect. So what do you mean? I'm going to come back to you now. What do you mean by dragon aspect? Some clarity on that, please. And then I won't be able to answer it properly.
I can let you unmute. That was Jennifer. Do you want to unmute and explain what you mean? If you're able.
Hi, thank you so much. So in your book, you mentioned that like the angels, some of them have dragon aspects, and ascended masters and so on. And what came into my understanding is that just like those beings, we have those dragons within each of us as well that are kind of rising up at this time. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I understand now. Yes, so the dragon aspect, obviously they are two different types of energies with the grandmasters, where we've got the ascended masters that can be dragon or human. Now with us, what I feel is that we've got dragons that connect to our chakras, and the one I feel that is becoming the aspect that's showing itself, and it's not a chakra that we use commonly, is the dragon of the navel, so the belly button chakra, the navel chakra. And that is our willpower and pure essence. So as our every possibility that we could, everything we could possibly be and achieve and accomplish or do is held within the power of that chakra, and the dragon held within it. So depending on from a chakra point of view, depending on which chakra you work most with that aspect, dragon wise, that will show. That's from a chakra point of view. Excuse me, but from other dragon aspects, it's not something that I've come across, and it's not something I've thought about. So I'll have to give that some more thought, but it's certainly from an energy point of view, because there's the dragon chakras, or dragons within the chakras connected to the chakras. The one that strikes me as being the most powerful at the moment is the dragon of the navel chakra, and that's a silver dragon, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And I think that answers the other question we had about chakras. So the next one is someone mentions they've been working with mediumship for the last few years, and several different people have told them they have a golden dragon with them. So she's asking, does that have something to do with the mediumship? And then as a second question, are there dragon lines in the US?
There are dragon lines all over the world. Now the dragons call this the Matrix. That's how they showed it to me. And whenever they talk about the Matrix, I just kept thinking about the film. Anyway, they eventually showed me a picture of the globe from outer space, and there are dragon lines that connect right around the world, and they connect. So don't confuse dragon lines with ley lines, because this is something that I did for a very long time, and I got myself in a complete pickle, and I just couldn't fathom it, because I was being very human and very logical, and I am quite a logical person, and I really struggled with this for a long time. I now understand, because they showed me very clearly, because they have to be very patient with me. Dragon lines are completely different to ley lines. That isn't to say that dragon lines don't follow some of the ley lines, but what ley lines go from point to point. Now, if you think of the most famous one we have in the UK, I'm sure everybody's heard of, is the Michael Mary line that goes from Norfolk to St Michael's Mount, and it goes through the various churches and things. It goes through, and the reason we have ley lines is they've got to go through a minimum of 5 ancient or sacred places. So that'll be churches, groves, ancient sites and things like that, and that's what makes a ley line. With the dragon lines, they actually create like a web, but it's like a diamond web around the planet. So if you think of a diamond shape like that, and the 4 points, there's sparks of light that come out. Those sparks of light are generally, so not necessarily completely diamond shape or asymmetrical, completely symmetrical, but the diamond shapes are, the spark is generally where the dragon lines meet at a site. So this can be a mountain. There's dragons at Mount Shasta. There's quite a lot of energy in Sedona. You've got it in California. There's dragons in Florida. I don't know about Central America. There'll be dragons there. I'm just being told there are dragons up through the old Sioux country, Dakotas, North and South Dakota. So there are dragons all over the states, and wherever you've got ancient sites. So this is, indigenous people sites. So whether you're looking down in Mexico, it's sort of Incas, Aztecs, that kind of ancient history. The Aboriginals in Australia, the Maori in Hawaii, wherever you've got indigenous peoples, and they've got their sites. Here it's Celtic in the UK. You will have dragon lines going through them, and they join together all around the world. The pyramids are another one. They go through the pyramids. Mount Sinai in Egypt is another place where there's energy going through. So there we go. I hope that they also go to the Vatican. They go through Westminster Abbey. They go through Washington. There's somewhere in Washington they go through. There's some big energy in Washington. I think it's Washington DC. Huge dragon energy that goes through there. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, do dragons have egos / personality types?
They definitely have personalities. They absolutely don't have ego. They have no time for ego. They call it man's ego, or human doings ego, and need for drama. Can't be doing with it. Don't want to know. So yeah, they don't have ego in that way. But they certainly have their own personalities, and they have a really good sense of humor. If you've been on any of my talks before, you've heard me talk about Gerald. So I have a dragon called Gerald. And as you may have discovered, your dragons don't have a name. They're getting better at the name thing, because I've given them lots of lectures about names. And when Gerald turned up, it was like, I need your name. What is your name? You don't need my name. I don't have a name. Of course you have a name. And this went on for days. And it's like, well, what do you want a name for? Because I need to know what to call you. I'm Caroline. I need to know what to call you. You know, I've got these guides, that guide, da, 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 da. That's how we communicate here. Well, dragons don't have names. Well, I need your name. You're going to have to find a name. And this went on for so long. And eventually he got so fed up with me, in complete exasperation. He said, I am Gerald with 2 R's. And you introduced me as Gerald with 2 R's. And that's how he is. So they've got quite a wonky sense of humour. And so he's Gerald with 2 R's. And when Gerald comes in, he hands his head over my shoulder. And he like a bit like a horse. And he likes to have his scratch between his eyes. Yeah. And I've got another guy that's my teacher. He's around. He's given me a name. But again, that was a bit like getting blood out of a stone. So yeah, they don't have egos as such, but they do definitely have very distinctive personalities, and each one will have a different frequency it comes in at energetically.
Okay, thank you. I'm just being reminded that the previous question was a 2-parter. So the first part was about connections between dragons and mediumship.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay. I forgot about it too.
So dragons and mediumship. Do you know what? If you're a medium, you should be a darn good dragon communicator, because you'll have, the chances are you'll have clairaudience and clairvoyance, and so you'll have a better chance than the rest of us that haven't got clairvoyance and clairaudience to have those really strong visuals and the hearing, the audient version of connecting to the dragons. So you don't, quite often you'll find mediums that have dragons, and they should make them a very good channel as a medium for giving sort of dragon messages and things, which is something that I tend not to do, because it's not the way that I work. So I don't tell people about their dragons per se. My role is to get people to meet their dragons for themselves and build their relationship. But there's no reason, if you're a really good channel as a mediumship channel, that you couldn't work with your dragons in that way. Hopefully that answers your question. If not, then just let me know.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, if I'm understanding it correctly, I think it sounds like this person's been working with a dragon that calls themselves divine feminine. So yeah, we're just curious what more you could tell us about divine feminine, if you have any thoughts on divine feminine.
Okay, so have you connected with her through my deck is my first question, because she's one of the dragons in my deck.
She says it was before she got your deck.
Oh, how interesting. Okay, I love it. So she's very much about power. So for me, divine feminine, again, it's connecting to that navel chakra, that sort of navel sacral chakra. It's bringing up that female power. So it's owning and knowing who you are. Women are starting to be seen as equals, and we're starting to find our voice and our feet. So for me, it feels very much like she is the powerhouse for women, collectively, but also as individuals. but that is not at the detriment, or not to the detriment, of the divine masculine. So this isn't about bashing men in any way at all. It's about finding that balance, one within you, the divine masculine, divine feminine within you, but also about externally having that divine masculine, divine feminine balance and respect for others, male and female, but honoring yourself as a divine being. Hope that helps.
Hey, thank you. So we've got about 10 minutes left, everybody. So if we don't get through all of your questions, I do apologize. I'm trying to catch as many as I can. So the next question is about what do you think about local stories of dragons? So this is a local stories in the UK. Why do you think there are these stories?
Do you know, I actually, other than a vague understanding or a vague knowledge of the red and white dragon of Wales and how they had a big battle and the red dragon won, I actually, and St. George's dragon, I have absolutely no knowledge of our dragon stories and fables. I couldn't tell you what they are locally. What they represent is anybody's guess. I have a theory on St. George and the Dragon, and that's all to do with ego and control, and about beating that ego and control down, and and being about not having power and removing power, but actual individual local colloquial stories about dragons, I've got I don't know what they are. I've not seen them, read them, or even researched them, to be honest. So I couldn't answer that question because I don't know what the stories are, so I can't answer it authentically. Sorry, guys.
All right. And then the next question is, where did it go? They just say, curious if there is a rainbow ray dragon.
Rainbow rays. Right. I got really hissy over this. This is my ego. I got right hissy over this. So a few years ago, on one of the social media platforms, I don't know which one it was, somebody was rattling on about the rainbow dragons. And it's like, what? Oh, for goodness sake, get over yourself. Anyway, I got put in my place, as only the dragons can. And the rainbow dragons are actually the Lemurian dragons. There's a connection with Lemurian and Atlantis dragons. And the rainbow dragons are actually Lemurian. So yeah, there is for want of a better expression, there is a clan of rainbow dragons, if you want to call it the rainbow dragons. They're the Lemurian dragons. But I don't see them as rainbows. But anyway, there we are.
Okay, thank you. And then there's a question about what is the connection with dragons and trees? This person has a sense that they are friends.
Dragons love anything to do with nature. So whether it's animals, trees, wide open spaces, water, plants, they have a real affinity with the natural world, and they will use the natural world to encourage us to communicate with them, with the earth, and with the fauna and fauna. So yeah, I think it's a vessel or a way to connect with the dragons.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like there was a question a bit above that I missed out on. Someone just asking if you can share a bit more about Magdalene and the sapphire dragons.
Oh, I mean, I need to get my notes out for that. So I wrote that about 2 years ago. So there are seven sapphire dragons that work with Magdalene, and they are all about our finding our own uniqueness, because Magdalene is all about female power. She is about, so back to that navel chakra. So she's about our sovereignty and our female power. And the dragons, it's a bit of a healing. It's actually a workshop, the Magdalene and the Sapphire Rays, and it's quite healing on finding your power and your authenticity and your sovereignty under the guidance of Magdalene and the Sapphire Rays.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe we can just do one more question and then we'll have to wrap things up. So what are your thoughts on Pendragon Reiki? I don't know what that is, but that's what they've said.
Okay, Pendragon Reiki. I had an email from somebody that's a Pendragon Reiki healer. I don't know what Pendragon Reiki is. I guess like you know, Reiki's been around for thousands of years, and in recent years we've got, I'm attuned to dragon guided Reiki. Then you've got the Pendragon Reiki, but then as soon as you've got angelic Reiki, you've got, I think somebody said the other day you got unicorn Reiki. I have no idea. So they're all without being disrespectful to any of the Reiki modalities, at the end of the day, you're channeling pure divine energy from source. Now, if you have other energies coming in to support that are pure and clear, amazing. But particularly on Pendragon Reiki, I haven't tried it. I'm not attuned to it. I've not met anybody personally that I could say, yes, they're a really good Reiki healer. So I honestly, I can't have an honest opinion on it because I don't know. So I'm sorry, that's not a very good answer, but that's the truth of it.
Okay, thank you. And now I know that unicorn Reiki is a thing too.
I'm sure, unless I was dreaming, but I'm sure I heard somebody or I saw something or heard something. Unicorn Reiki. I could be telling a complete massive fib, but
well, it sounds interesting, whether it's a dream or real.
who knows?
So
You heard
okay,
it here first. Maybe it's not already happened.
well, thank you, Caroline. I think we'll have to wrap up there. Just very quickly, would you like to mention what we can expect from your workshop? So that's coming up on the 29th of July, and that's called Meet Your Dragon Team. So what will we be doing in that workshop?
So throughout that afternoon, I touched on your team at the beginning of the talk, and we're going to be doing a deep dive with you to meet each of your team. So your guide, your teacher, your guardian, and your healing dragon. And I'm going to introduce you to all four of them, and you're going to meet them personally in meditation and be guided by them, receive messages from them, and actually get to completely connect with them. So it's going to, so you'll need to be a strong meditator, because there's big meditations throughout the afternoon to meet them. You'll be guided in doing a little bit of journaling around them, and how to build your connection and build on that connection to take you forward, because these guys are the core. If you're a real dragon person, these guys are the core of your work going forward.
Right. And I was just checking really quickly to see if it's being recorded, because someone was asking about that, and it's not being recorded, but it is going to be online. So you can join from anywhere in the world. We had a lot of Americans in the house, and I think it's a US friendly time. It's 2 p.m.
2 to 6
time.
Yeah, so I always tend to do them from sort of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's not the middle of the night for you guys in the States. It might be an early morning. Is there Saturday or Sunday? I can't remember.
Sorry?
Oh, is it Saturday or a Sunday?
It's on Saturday.
Remember. Saturday. So it's not going to be sort of silly o'clock. It's not going to be like 3 o'clock in the morning for you guys. I think the earliest it might be is sort of 6 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, depending on where you are and which coast you're on.
Yeah, East Coast, that should be 9 in the morning.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll just throw the link in the chat for people who are now asking about the workshop, but I'll be sending out the recording to everyone tomorrow. So you can feel free to view this talk again. I'll also include the link to the workshop in the email. So yeah, anything else you want to say, Caroline?
No, just thank you so much for joining me, listening to me waffle. And I really look forward to connecting with you, meeting your dragon team. You can find me on all social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, those kind of things. So, do feel free to follow me over on those pages. And obviously I'm at the college. I nearly always work online because I've got, a large American audience. And for as much as I'd love you all to come to college, it's not practical. So we do it online. And yeah, I look forward to working with you guys as and when is appropriate, right? And the dragons bring us into alignment. And I really look forward to that. So thank you so much for joining me. And it's amazing questions, by the way, some fabulous questions. So thank you for those. And obviously massive thanks to Maria and the college for asking me to come on and talk to you.
Always a pleasure to have you. So
Lovely.
yeah, thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everybody. And see you again sometime.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye.